Let's be honest, Stellar doesn't always get the hype. It's not the shiny new layer one everyone's memeing about. It doesn't have the culture of Ethereum or the lightning speed of Solana when it comes to DeFi. But Stellar has quietly positioned itself as the payments-first blockchain. So here's the scene. It's 2025, and the financial world looks very different from just a few years ago. Inflation cooled down in most regions, but the scars of high interest rates and unstable economies are still fresh. People and businesses are still struggling with the same old problem, moving money across borders quickly, cheaply, and reliably. Think about it. You've got a friend in South America who wants to send money to their cousin in the US or the UK. Right now, even with all our fintech apps, that process is still slow and expensive. Fees eke into the transfer. Settlement times are measured in days, not minutes. And for small businesses who import goods, that delay can literally make or break cash flow. Now, drop PayPal stablecoin PYUSD into this picture. On paper, it sounds simple. A US dollar-backed token you can send like a text message. But the key twist in 2025 is this. PayPal isn't just leaving it on Ethereum anymore. They've announced that PYUSD is coming to Stellar XLM, and that's a big deal. Why? Because Stellar was built for exactly this: global payments at scale. Fast, cheap, and compliant enough to play ball with regulators. PayPal sees that, and instead of just letting PYUSD live in the speculative, DeFi-heavy world of Ethereum and Solana, they're planting it on Stellar to turn it into something more practical. Let's back up for a second. PYUSD was first launched in 2023, backed 1:1 with US dollars and short-term treasuries, issued by Paxos Trust Company. It started its life on Ethereum, which made sense at the time because Ethereum was, and still is, the default place for launching assets. But here's the thing, Ethereum is powerful, but it's not exactly the cheapest or fastest way to move money around the world. Gas fees swing up and down, and for microtransactions or remittances, those costs kill the value. Imagine sending $50 home and losing $5 in fees. That's not scalable. So PayPal had a choice. Either stay locked in Ethereum's ecosystem or start expanding into chains designed for utility. They chose expansion. First Solana, then now Stellar. And Stellar is not just another blockchain. Its architecture is built for payments. Low fees like fractions of a cent per transaction. Settlement times that are basically instant. And a network of on- and off-ramps in over 170 countries. That's the kind of infrastructure PayPal needs to make PYUSD a global financial tool, not just a crypto curiosity. And PayPal cares about payments, not means. In June 2025, PayPal announced that PYUSD would expand to Stellar, pending regulatory approval from the New York State Department of Financial Services. That caveat matters, but the signal is clear. PayPal is betting that Stellar's rails can solve problems Ethereum couldn't. And when you line up the timing, it makes sense. Right now, in 2025, global remittances are projected to hit over $850 billion this year, according to World Bank data. And the costs of sending that money? Still averaging between 5 and 6% in many corridors. For developing nations, that's billions lost in fees every year. PayPal sees that gap, Stellar provides the rails, and PYUSD is the product that can fill it. Let's make this practical. Picture this. You're a small business owner in Kenya importing goods from the US. Normally, you'd pay through traditional banking channels. That means waiting days for clearance, losing money in conversion, and paying hefty bank fees. Now imagine you can settle that bill using PYUSD on Stellar. Instead of days, it's seconds. Instead of $50 in bank fees, it's a few cents in transaction costs. And you still get the same stability of a US dollar-backed asset. That's what this move is really about. Not crypto trading, not speculation. Real money moving across real borders for real people and businesses. And PayPal isn't shy about this vision. Their VP of blockchain, Zabana, said stablecoins are crypto's killer app because they combine the stability of fiat with the power of blockchain. When PayPal puts that statement next to Stellar's infrastructure, you start to see the bigger picture. Now let me ask you, if you could send money instantly at near zero cost to anyone in the world, Would you still trust your bank with those international transfers? Would you still use Western Union, MoneyGram, or even PayPal's old remittance rails? Or would you switch to something faster and cheaper, especially if it's backed by the same company you already trust with online payments? That's the kind of disruption Stellar is built for. And here's where it gets even more interesting. The markets have noticed. XOM, Stellar's native token, has already seen jumps since this announcement. Analysts are weighing in, investors are speculating, and executives from both PayPal and Stellar are giving bold statements about what this means for the future of payments. Now let's talk about the aftershocks. Because let's be real, in crypto, big announcements don't just sit quietly in a press release. They ripple through the markets, through investor sentiment, through Twitter feeds, through Reddit threads. And that's exactly what happened with Stellar's XLM. The moment PayPal confirmed PYUSD's expansion to Stellar in June 2025, the market moved. XLM surged about 5 to 6% in a single 24-hour window, which, in the top 20 crypto rankings, made it one of the strongest movers of the day. Now, that might not sound like much if you're thinking in terms of memecoin pumps or 100x fantasies. But here's the key. For a large-cap token like XLM, a single-digit move on the back of fundamental news is huge. It means traders weren't just gambling. They were reacting to a structural shift in Stellar's story. And this wasn't a one-off spike. Over the following weeks, XLM's daily transaction volume climbed to over 2 million transactions per day, with more wallets spinning up and liquidity pools preparing for PYUSD's arrival. The speculation wasn't just about price, it was about adoption. Now, let me bring in some outside voices. Analysts across crypto media and traditional finance started connecting the dots. Some pointed out that Stellar has always talked about being the blockchain for payments, but it needed a flagship partner to prove it. And PayPal stepping in gave Stellar that credibility. Think about it. PayPal isn't some DeFi startup or crypto-native exchange. It's a Fortune 500 company with over 400 million users worldwide. When they pick your blockchain, it sends a message. Others emphasized the institutional angle. If PYUSD can move seamlessly on Stellar, it doesn't just benefit individuals sending remittances. It could also appeal to corporates managing liquidity across borders. Imagine a multinational being able to settle vendor payments instantly in a stablecoin that's fully compliant and issued by Paxos. That's a very different narrative than people speculating on meme tokens. And let's not forget the executive comments. Stellar's own CEO, Danelle Dixon, said this expansion puts Stellar at the heart of trusted, global payments at scale. Meanwhile, PayPal's engineers framed Stellar as the chain that can reach 180-plus countries with low-cost transactions, the exact kind of infrastructure merchants and small businesses crave. But here's the part one really want you to pay attention to. Sentiment shifted. For years, Stellar has been kind of an underdog, always respected but often overshadowed by Ethereum, Solana, even Ripple's XRP when it comes to the payments narrative. Suddenly, with one announcement, Stellar wasn't just another chain in the background. It was the chain PayPal picked to test the next evolution of its stablecoin strategy. And the community noticed. On Reddit and X, formerly Twitter, Stellar hashtags trended for the first time in ages. People were saying things like, "Finally, real utility is coming to XLM," or "This is the partnership that could wake the sleeping giant." Of course, not everyone was convinced. Some skeptics argued it was just another PR move, that until PYUSD actually launches on Stellar and users adopt it, all this hype is just speculation. And they have a point. But even the skeptics admitted, PayPal wouldn't risk its brand on a network that couldn't deliver. Now let me throw this back to you. Imagine you were holding XLM back in May 2025, when it was trading quietly, barely making headlines. Suddenly, PayPal makes this announcement, and the price jumps. Do you take profits right there? Or do you hold because you believe this is just the beginning of Stellar's new chapter? That's the dilemma traders faced. And honestly, it's still the dilemma today. Here's the part one think is even more interesting than price charts. The activity on-chain. Exchanges started preparing liquidity pools specifically for PYUSD/XLM pairs. Merchant service providers began teasing integrations that would allow payments in PYUSD over Stellar rails. Even fintech startups started pitching themselves as Stellar native remittance solutions. Knowing the tide was turning. It's one thing for a token price to go up. It's another for builders to start building because of an announcement. And that's exactly what we saw in mid-2025. So, to sum it up, PayPal's PYUSD news didn't just nudge XLM's price. It flipped a switch in how people see Stellar. From analysts to investors to builders, the sentiment went from Mitch payments chain to maybe the backbone of global stablecoin adoption. And yet, as exciting as that sounds, there's still a double-edged sword here. Because with opportunity comes risk, and with hype comes the question, can Stellar actually deliver? We've seen the price jump, the analysts buzzing, the community waking up. But let's slow down a second and ask the big question. What does this really mean for Stellar and PayPal's PYUSD? Because if there's one thing we've learned in crypto, it's this. Every breakthrough carries both opportunities and risks. And when you're talking about a heavyweight like PayPal teaming up with Stellar, those stakes only get higher. Let's start with the good stuff, the opportunities that PYUSD on Stellar unlocks. Instant global payments. One of Stellar's core missions has always been cross-border payments. And with PYUSD on the network, we're not just talking theory anymore. We're talking real-world potential. Imagine a freelancer in Kenya getting paid instantly in PYUSD by a client in Germany. No delays, no banking intermediaries, no high fees. That's not just convenient, that's transformative. Especially when you consider that over 1 billion people worldwide remain underbanked in 2025. Stellar plus PYUSD could become their own ramp into the digital economy. Merchant adoption. Now think about merchants. PayPal already has over 35 million merchants plugged into its ecosystem. If even a fraction of those merchants accept PYUSD via Stellar rails, that's massive. Suddenly, a coin that was previously seen as just another stablecoin has real-world retail utility. Starbucks, eBay, Shopify stores, all of them could, in theory, tap into this. And don't underestimate that. Retail adoption is often the hardest part of crypto. PYUSD on Stellar gives merchants a product they already trust, PayPal, but now supercharged with blockchain speed and lower costs. Institutional on-ramps. Here's another big opportunity. Institutions. In 2025, we've seen hedge funds, payment processors, and even banks warming up to tokenized money. If Stellar can position itself as the chain where regulated, stable value tokens like PYUSD thrive, it could open doors to a flood of institutional use cases. Treasury settlements, payroll and stablecoins, cross-border B2B payments. All of it becomes more efficient. Developer ecosystem boost. Let's not forget the builders. Every time a big partnership like this lands, it acts as a magnet. Developers start asking, how can I leverage this? We're already seeing whispers of fintech startups building Stellar-based wallets designed specifically for PYUSD transactions. That's an ecosystem multiplier effect. Now, let's not get carried away. With all this opportunity comes a real set of risks. Over-reliance on PayPal. Here's the first one. What if Stellar ties its entire future narrative too tightly to PayPal? Don't get me wrong, it's an incredible partnership. But PayPal isn't a charity. If the economics don't make sense, or if regulation shifts, PayPal could easily pivot away. And if that happens, Stellar could be left holding the bag. Regulatory scrutiny. Then there's the regulatory risk. In 2025, governments around the world are cracking down harder on stablecoins. The EU has MiCA in full swing. The US has its Stablecoin Clarity Act floating around Congress. PYUSD might be fully backed and Paxos issued. But the regulators won't just look at PayPal, they'll look at Stellar too. And if Stellar becomes the backbone of PYUSD, any legal turbulence could slow everything down. Competition heats up. Don't forget, Stellar isn't the only player in the stablecoin game. Ethereum still dominates stablecoin issuance. Solana has carved out its niche for speed. Even Ripple, despite its battles, is pushing into institutional settlement. And then there are dark horses like Avalanche and Mir, building quietly in the background. Stellar has to prove it's not just PayPal's experiment. It has to show it can compete head-to-head. Network stress test. And here's a practical one. What happens if adoption actually explodes? Can Stellar handle it? The network has historically managed millions of transactions per day without major issues, but scale is always the big test. If tens of millions of people suddenly start moving PYUSD daily, will Stellar's infrastructure keep up without congestion or fee spikes? That's the question builders and validators are watching closely. So here we are, staring at two sides of the coin. On one side, Stellar finally has its big break, a chance to show the world it's not just the other payments chain, but the payments chain. On the other side, it faces the classic crypto challenges: regulatory landmines, competitive pressure, and the risk of overpromising. And here's the thing, both sides are true at the same time. That's what makes this so fascinating. If you're bullish, you look at PayPal's 400 million user base, the merchant network, the global remittance corridors, and you say, this is it, this is Stellar's breakout moment. If you're cautious, you look at history and remember, we've seen hyped partnerships before. Not every one of them leads to mass adoption. So let me put this back to you. When you think about Stellar's future now, do you see the glass half full or half empty? Are you the type of investor or observer who says, this is exactly the kind of partnership that changes the game? Or do you say, I'll wait and see if this actually turns into real usage before I get excited? Because honestly, that split in opinion is what's driving the current market. Some traders are already front-running adoption. Others are staying on the sidelines, waiting for data, waiting to see if people actually use PYUSD on Stellar instead of just talking about it. At the end of the day, PayPal's PYUSD launch on Stellar opens doors we couldn't have imagined even a year ago. It's both a golden opportunity and a potential minefield. Success isn't guaranteed, but the stakes are higher than ever. If Stellar delivers, if it can prove scalability, compliance, and merchant adoption, then this moment will be remembered as the turning point where XLM went from just another altcoin to the backbone of global stablecoin payments. But if it stumbles, if regulation hits hard, or if adoption fizzles, then all this hype could just be another footnote in crypto's long history of what could have been. The truth is, we won't know which way it goes just yet. But one thing's certain: the next 12 months will define Stellar's trajectory for years to come. When big news drops in crypto, it's not just about charts and headlines. It's about who's talking and what they're saying. Because executive comments often reveal more than the press releases themselves. And in the case of PayPal's PYUSD launch on Stellar, both PayPal and Stellar leaders have been vocal about why this matters. Let's start with Stellar. Danielle Dixon, CEO of the Stellar Development Foundation, called this partnership a milestone moment in digital payments. Her focus was clear. Stellar wasn't just hosting a token. It was powering a global network that could make stablecoins useful in everyday life. She highlighted Stellar's low transaction fees and its reach through over 180 countries, pointing out that this move aligns perfectly with Stellar's mission to create equitable access to financial services. The message was simple. Stellar is no longer the underdog. It's stepping up as a backbone for global finance. On PayPal's side, the tone was equally strong. Jose Fernandez de Ponte, PayPal's SVP of Blockchain and Digital Currencies, emphasized that Stellar gives PYUSD a unique edge: fast, cheap, borderless settlement without sacrificing compliance. He noted that PayPal isn't chasing hype here. They're chasing utility. In his words, Stellar is the chain that could bring real-world adoption of stablecoins at scale, particularly for remittances and small businesses. Think about that for a second. PayPal, a global payments giant, is openly saying, we see Stellar as a critical part of our stablecoin strategy. That's not something they say lightly. So why do these comments matter? Because they give us clarity on intent. This isn't just a technical integration. It's a strategic move. Both Stellar and PayPal are framing this as a play for long-term adoption, not just short-term noise. And in crypto, executive alignment is crucial. When leaders put their reputation behind a project, it signals confidence. It tells us they see the potential risks, but they also see the reward as worth it. So here's where we land. PayPal's PYUSD on Stellar is more than a partnership. It's a signal that stablecoins are maturing.